Thanks for checking out another podcast, everyone. Did that start recording?
Yeah.
It just said raise my hand on the screen.
No.
Thanks for checking out another podcast. We spoke to Joe and Alex this week. Joe and Alex were in a studio together here in Northampton, which is pretty cool. Photomafia, yeah. Their Instagrams and website link will be down below. But yeah, it was a very informal chat with the two of them. We've known Joe for a while. Luke, you've actually bought one of his prints. And yeah, we asked him to come on the podcast. He actually has his own podcast, which again, there'll be a link down below. So yeah, it was really interesting. We've always said since we started this, as well as building front, we wanted to help support kind of our local adventures, if you like, or no, what's the best word for it? Our local talent and business ventures.
Right, yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. They've not long finished uni. They've opened their own studio, like straight out of uni, which is really cool. So
and it's an awesome space. They're very talented guys, and they're a very awesome space. And yeah, they're doing things. They're doing what they love doing, which is great to see. And it's local to us, so we certainly want to help support that. And yeah, we talked to them a little bit about how they started the studio. They've got some advice in there as we talk. And it was great just to kind of get a comparison to how they work compared to other studios as well. We spoke to about everything, didn't we?
Yeah, just carry
we should say a bit about front then.
Go on then. What?
Well, you know more than me.
There's nothing to
see. Well, I'll just say so. So enjoy the rest of the podcast where we speak to Joe and Alex. We'll tell you a little bit about front, but same as usual, we're working hard, building the platform. It is coming soon. We've had some fresh ideas that we've wanted to implement recently, so we're working on inputting them into the site, ready for launch. If you haven't already, please register to the mailing list. Again, the link will be in the description. You'll simply be one of the first people on front with an exclusive offer. Thank you so much to everyone who has already done it. Generally blown away with how many people have registered. We don't send out junk emails. I think we've sent 2 in the last year, but 2022 soon, it is coming. So stay tuned and go and follow us on Instagram. That's where we do most of our updates and talk to you lovely lot. Stay tuned. Enjoy this episode. Drum roll, please. Not doing it. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Exciting to be here.
We are joined by Joe and Alex, and let's get straight into it. I'll ask why it's you two together on this podcast. What is it that you're working on together?
This lovely space you see around you, Photomafia Studios. It's our sort of post-uni brainchild that kind of has finally come into fruition of just kind of working together a lot of uni and then realizing it was going to end and then going, well, I swear, it was a good effort. And then going, fuck, we're going to graduate and we don't know what we're doing. So it kind of was like, well, what do we want to do? And then we kind of, I don't know, somehow figured it out and now we're here. So there's us two and then there's Tom as well.
And this is in Northampton, isn't it?
Yeah. So just across where you just met, just across from the Garibaldi, across the race course. So
yeah, nice
location.
Yeah, and is the plan to stay there kind of like long term, or is it just like whilst you kind of collaborating together?
Yeah. The aim is to stay as long as possible. We do want to expand elsewhere. Which would be quite nice. So yeah,
the goal is to stay like Northampton be the main focus there. Whether it's to be honest, we're like this space is beyond what we could have expected for like a first studio. We were looking at some other buildings going like, oh shit, but I guess this is the reality. And then we found this one, we were like, oh perfect, this is like beyond ideal. So it's like perfect for us at the moment, but hopefully all going well, we'll be able to bigger and better things. But yeah, Northampton's the thing in our work, so it's like makes sense to stay here and keep born here. So it's like rep it, you know what I mean, run with it.
So let's take it back then. So I'm guessing that you two met at university, right?
Yeah.
In Northampton.
Yeah.
And you're both studying art and photography, is that right, or just photography?
It's just a photography course, but it's kind of like the one at Northampton's like general, so it was a bit of art, a bit of commercial, they let you try everything out basically as you go through the 3 years.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you go to college at Booth Lane in Northampton?
No, so I went sixth form. You went sixth form as well.
Yeah, but different sixth form.
Yeah.
So
Malcolm Arnold.
And then I was at NSB.
Yeah.
So
nice. Okay.
Yeah, so finished there and then ended up at University of Northampton basically.
Yeah. Because I went to college in Northampton and did photography. I did like art, I did film studies and photography, but my second year of photography, I dropped out because they got rid of the darkroom and I missed it. Do you know what I mean? That was like one of the main reasons I wanted to keep doing it. And I feel like there's a lot of people, if you are listening to this and you want to get into darkroom photography, you've got to make sure you do your research to what kind of photography it is you want to study, not just go to somewhere that happens to do photography. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure you two can testify that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It was like when I started uni, it was just like the weird thing is when we started, it was still because the campus moved, didn't it? So it was all like when they were showing us around, they were like, "Here's all the old stuff," and they're like, "Oh look, we've got color darkroom, black and white darkroom." We're like, they're massive. And then the new campus has like a tiny black and white darkroom. It was like, we got gypped a bit here, didn't we? But okay, but it was all good. It's still, still a darkroom and mostly black and white anyway. You just kind of roll with the limitations just so you can keep taking photos. It's like the main thing, right? But yeah, to be honest, like, yeah, if you went to college and didn't have a darkroom, I'd done the same thing. If my sixth form were like, yeah, we're just gonna get rid of that now and be like, I'm done. I was on the edge of done the whole of A levels, to be honest. So that was
funny because I actually got Snappy Snaps, the camera place.
Yeah.
So I actually used to work there, but not in Snappy Snaps, and like they had like a basement studio in there.
Oh right.
And so it's just like there was like an old guy that I worked with who did like studio photography, right? It could be anyone looking for like model shots to family portraits, whatever it was. It was like a cheap studio photography experience, right? And I worked there.
Where the Snappy Snaps is now.
Yeah.
In the basement.
It's got a basement.
It's got just a studio. Well, I don't know if it still is. This was like 15 years ago. I worked there. I only worked there on Saturdays, just like a Saturday and maybe the odd half day in between like college classes and stuff like that. But I learned more there in 6 days, like 6 weeks of working Saturdays than I did in college. Do you know what I mean? Because it was more catered to, I had all the equipment. It was fortunate enough to have all the equipment. But at the same time, I learned hands-on how to take a photo, edit a photo, use the studio, where college was like, oh, go research this photographer and then take photos like him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I worked at Snappy Snaps and then obviously I learned a lot there. And then I actually left and I worked at Venture Portraits. But then over time, just got different jobs and whatnot. But, I never regretted going to college, but I always felt like you were researching like a certain photographer and then it was like, oh, go copy them. And I was like, well, I don't want to copy them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just a weird thing. And, I learned the basics of photography, but it was more about the history when I was like, no, I want this camera, or I want to use that camera, or I want to learn how to develop film or whatever it might be. But I don't know if it's the same at university. Do they let you kind of, narrow down into what you like more? A bit more creative?
University is a lot more open. I think like A level for me was fucking hell because it was like what you described college as, but it was like do 2 whole books worth of research, take 1 photo, and then do another whole 2 books of research, and it's just like, the university is a bit more balanced. I felt like, at least for me, but and there was a lot more hands-on as well, and it was kind of just like, to be fair, what I really liked, it wasn't so much the coursework, like the actual course where they were getting you to do stuff, but it was kind of like, here's what you've got to do, and then the rest of the time it was just like, well, the stuff's here if you want to use it. Go as mad as you like, spend as much money on our film and like chemicals and just run up a bill on studio, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, and they just let you run wild in all the state-of-the-art equipment for 3 years. So that was what we spent most of our time doing, you know what I mean? That's where we produced like 5:4 portraits and stuff, which like now it's like, might have to save up a bit before we do something like that again and pray we don't fuck it up. As that one, it was just like, we can just screw it up, it doesn't matter, it's whatever, we can just jump in and just sit.
That's what I missed, but I never took advantage of it at the time because we had like a little shop at the college. It was like an art shop, but it sold like film and whatnot. Do you know what I mean? Pinhole cameras and things like that. And it was dirt cheap, but at the same time, you could still get it cheap. You could go buy a roll of film from Poundland. Do you know what I mean? So why would you spend £3 on a roll of film then when you can go get a roll for £1, which you're just going to put towards projects? You don't want to spend loads on a fancier film stock for the sake of it. But did you have a shop at the university?
We did, but it wasn't
that successful, was it?
I don't know whether it's still there, but it was more of it was like an odd one. So it was like when it was at the old campus, it was like had film fridges and stuff like that in it. And then when it came to the new place, it was just like, we've got some leftover, like everything was just leftover stuff, and they didn't advertise it. So you'd have, like, we just went and asked, like, do you have this? And they're like, oh yeah, we've got some expired or like just going out of date. And they didn't really know what it was worth or whatever. They're like, we're trying to get rid of it. So we got it like already discounted for it being a uni shop, and then further discounted stuff. But our port of call for everything was just like Skiers.
Yeah.
But I've probably made Mr. Skiers in the past 5 years. Like the amount of just ridiculous spending.
I've just seen they've got some more Portra 400, Portra 160 in. They've just had a big delivery. I know that much. So yeah, if you listen to this and you need some photography equipment, check out our local store, which is Skiers Photographic. There'll be a link down below. I'm sure you'll put it in, Luke. But yeah, let's take it back then. How did you two get into photography? Was it always a passion, or did you get into it through something else?
I had to do it because I had to select a subject in my sixth form. So I was like, I'll just try photography out. It was between history and photography, so I was like, photography seems like the better one to go for this rate. So I went for it, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like it at first. And I was like, oh, I'm into it. So I was getting involved and started liking it, and then I went to uni and then pursued it as like as something I really wanted to do. And then because obviously we never had like a dark room, like you posh boys NFB. So yeah, it was all right. So, but yeah, it was quite new to me when I went to uni, because all I got to learn was like mainly the retouching and stuff like that. So my knowledge is a little bit better on that side of things. But what about you?
I'm trying to think what the actual like proper style, like skateboarding, I think. Through that, just fucking like wanting to get pictures of, people doing tricks, you know what I mean? And then like, well, it starts off because you want cool pictures of yourself, and then you realize you're not good enough to get cool pictures, and you're wasting everyone's time. So you end up taking the pictures, and then you're like, oh, okay.
Don't you think it's funny though? It's not you that decides that. It's when more and more people start coming up to you and going, "Can you film me do this line?" or "Can you take a photo of me?" And you're like, "Oh, I've become that guy. I'm no longer that guy that can do the trick. I'm the one that has to hold the phone there and film it for your little Instagram video." I was like that, man. Like, but I don't regret it. Do you know what I mean? I'm still into skating now, and it's still my passion. But at the same time, like, I'm never going to be a pro. But I'm okay with that. Do you know what I mean? I knew that a long time ago. I was never going to be pro.
And it's like, yeah, I think it was that, and then just like seeing like Ash, like seeing his videos, and then from that finding like Joel Peck stuff, and then just at school, like it was the same art school, you had to pick an art subject, and I was like, I'm not doing drama. And then being like, well, pick art, and I'm like, I can't. But like all the art teachers going, don't make him do art, he can't draw. So it was like, okay, photography, I'm sure it was like the go-to like mess around subject, but I was like already trying to do it anyway, so it was like, okay, cool. And then when you're actually there, and you like, as soon as I said that, my granddad was like, oh, I've got all these old film cameras, and then that was it. Then it was just like, okay, now I'm not taking little phone photos of people skating. It's like, I've got a proper camera now, guys. And then it's just like, sold your soul to it. Then that's it, and just like flicking through crashes, seeing like crazy photos, and just being like, okay, cool. There's a thing to this, That's
I got into photography the exact same way, or video or photography. I think that artistic side of every skateboarder will be there. Do you know what I mean? Like even someone who doesn't know how to operate a camera will still appreciate a good skate photo, or know a couple of skate photographers, or whatever it might be, whether they're world famous or from your town. Do you know what I mean? It's
like skate photography is so much. I don't know. It still feels like it's a bit ahead of all the other, like, you know what I mean? It's like I can always tell when you meet photographers who are out there, and I always can kind of, even just from like seeing their photos and then just meet once, and you kind of already get an idea of who was skating or doing something like that beforehand, and who wasn't, because there are just that. I don't know. Maybe it's just a nostalgic thing for me because I can see it in there, and it's just like, oh, you just kind of clicks for me more. But you pick out those little things like how they're taking pictures of their friends and stuff like that, and how their brain works when they're doing it, and how they're willing to just like try something 50 times until see if it works. You know what I mean? It's like that sort of.
You can see the passion there. I think it's the same with like fashion as well. Like I swear everything arrives from skateboarding. I was having this argument with my missus the other day, and I was like, you know, everyone wearing like what they called gilets or whatever you call them. Do you know what I mean? I remember buying one of them like 6 or 7 years ago, and everyone being like, "You look like a bellend, Jamie," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is the future." And now they're like everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Now I have to stop wearing it.
Right. I mean, your hat, right? Supreme was skateboarding.
Yeah. But that's it, like Supreme, Palace, like they're skateboarding companies, right? They're like, and that's why I feel like, you know, I might not skate as much as I used to anymore, but I feel like I still follow skateboarding. So yeah, I'm allowed to wear this hat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like
each their own. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like even if you buy it and you haven't got a clue that it's a skateboard company, they're you know, a skateboard company's still getting money at the end of the day. My dog is called Thrasher. Yeah. And the amount of people, best name ever, right? But the amount of people that say, "Oh, I know that band." No, you don't. No, you don't. It's not a band. I've named him after a magazine. Do you know what I mean? Like, but not many people know that. Or when you see him, like, "Oh, that's an aggressive name." Yeah, it is. Leave him alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, what else?
But it's like one of those ones where it's just like, you know, everyone used to hate on it, and then it's just like, oh, Selfridge just have a bowl in there now. They have a whole floor dedicated to like basically just these skate brands that you used to remember seeing in the skate shop and being like the one that blew my mind in Selfridge. I don't know whether you remember them at Skate Attic, like, but they had sex skateboards.
Oh yeah.
And I remember then they literally just had like penises, basically just like looked like they was just spray painted on. Sex skateboards has like products and Selfridges now on that floor, which is like the most nuts thing to see. It's just like,
aren't they like a French company, a French skate company or something? I don't know, to be fair.
I don't even know, but it was just like seeing what I saw in like Ash's shop, and like just seemed so like, just kind of, they don't give a fuck. It almost seemed like they just found some boards at skate park and like resprayed them with spray paint, and now they're like in one of the biggest shops in London or whatever. It's just like, at this point, I don't think anyone can be like, oh, skateboarding is like this dumb little thing. It's just like we've basically completely superseded everything from finance, you know, and that's like, and I think it's like you say, it's like you see it, you start seeing everything. Like the whole thing with the studio is kind of a skate shop ethos about it, like with the community aspects and just like helping out younger creators and things like that is the whole idea behind it, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think skateboarding, anyone who skateboards will appreciate anything artistic that comes from it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such an individual thing to do as well, right? Like you never get the same skater. You know what I mean? Like, and as a skater, there's skateboarders that I hate. They might technically be amazing, right? They might be the best skateboarder in the world. But if I don't like what they look like on a skateboard, I'm going to hate on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just how it is. It's just the way, right? And you can be like that with photography. You can see work that you can appreciate is a great photo, but I'm not going to buy it. Do you know what I mean? I've got no interest.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, we're all under the same roof again. You know, no one's going to buy one of my photos unless it generally appeals to them for some reason. I don't know.
That's what you want, isn't it? It's like the whole thing with like social medias and things like that, where it's just like you post something that you're like, oh, that's a fucking sick shot. You post it, and then you're like, oh, and now I've lost 2 followers, and it's kind of like, but then you think about it, it's like, well, I didn't like thinking about it realistically. It's like, did I want you here anyway? If you're not going to be excited about the same stuff I am, you know what I mean? So it's just that.
I feel like mine and Luke's whole kind of perception of like Instagram has changed, where it used to be this platform where, you know, I'm sure Luke, you would agree, where it was kind of like our diary, our portfolio of photography. And I don't know if I don't think I look at it the same now because I run the front photography account, or predominantly, like I tend to do the most on it. But because I'm looking at that from a slight business point, or what I can do to help others, like especially through what we're doing with front, I kind of forget about my own one, and then I kind of post from it from time to time. But I never think about you know, I've stopped using hashtags on my own one because like I've just learned that like what's the point? Like the people can still find it. Do you know what I mean? They can still find whatever, like my work if they wanted to, but there's 1,000,000,001 other photographers on Instagram. Why is my work going to stand out? Why am I putting it on there to stand out? It should just be a place for me to look back on. But I don't know, you use it in different ways, don't you?
Yeah, like this is the thing, like because I run the Photomafia Studios account where we repost all our blog posts and stuff, which like I go and shoot an event on a Friday night and then put that out as a blog post. And it's like, as it used to be, like I'd go out on a Friday night, shoot the event, and then my Instagram for the next week would be like one image after another. But now I'm like, I've just uploaded the blog post with 20 of them. I'm like, go look at it there if you want to see it. But then I'm like, what do I post on my Instagram now? So the Instagram becomes like, but it's kind of cool to kind of be at that point now where it's like when you first start, it's like I've got every good picture I ever take is like you end up loading it and then you have 3 weeks where you're like, I've got nothing to post, and then I've got nothing. But now I'm at that point where it's like, okay, blog posts are out, I can share some offcuts on my own Instagram, and then it's like the post you asked me for 4 or 5 earlier, there's like the one of Cameron crowd surfing, that's like the only place it's out is your Instagram. Like that's the only place that one's been used. So
and I cropped it. Oh dear. Oh dear. Do you know what? That is like my pet hate as well, yeah, of people cropping. But I was like, but I put it at the end as well, like uncropped. But then, like, I know it sounds silly, yeah, but when we're running the Instagram, like if I collaborate with someone, I try and make that post look like their profile, because some people have white borders, some people don't, right? So I want to make sure that it's got a chance of being collaborated with to help you out, not to help us out, to help you out. You're more likely to accept it. You're more likely to have people to see your work if you're going to collaborate, which is a backwards way of working because you have to like play the system, right? But I hate it. Like there's like I've done a couple of like friends' weddings and stuff, or baby photos, whatever it might be. I send it over. I'm not saying any names if you listen to this, but I send it over and then they crop it. And I'm like, it wasn't a crop photo. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just a little pet hate.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's like photographers who are like, oh, I sent it to them and then they edited it. And I'm just like, yeah, why did they do that? Yeah. Real mixed feeling about it though. It was like, because
if they would have come back to you and said, oh, this is great, mate, but can you enhance the colours, or can you make this in black and white? Yeah, no problem, because you've asked me to take those photos. But if you're asking me for my photography, then don't change it. That's what I would say.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm open to suggestions.
They're like the raw files, you know what I mean? That way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it because it's like I still have my version, right? I'd understand if they hired me being like, I really like your style, and then they like take my black and white work and they make it all sorts of weird for the sake of like an Instagram post. I'd find kind of bits like croppings, whatever. Like, okay, no one's gonna judge me if someone's cropped it weird on their Instagram or whatever. But like with the editing one, it's like we've got one at the moment that we did the shoot in the studio, and then the guys asked it to use it for an EP cover, and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to change it slightly," and I'm like, "Yeah, let's see what he does. Yeah, let's see how it turns out." But that's different than like being so. But then at least he asked, and then at least it's someone I can trust not to make it look awful. It'll just be slightly different. And I
suppose, like you said, you've still got the original, which you can do with what you want. Right?
It's like our I think the interesting was our university exhibition. So we had like a virtual exhibition. I did a zine for mine, and then also like there was a university exhibition at Mayfair Gallery in town, and we were told like, so your submission was like 15 images as a series, and then we were like, so which ones go in the exhibition or whatever? Is it all of it? And they're like, oh, you get 3. So me and him were like sitting around being like, so which 3 do we want to pick? And our lecturers walked past and they're like, why are you picking out 3? And they're like, well, because you said there was 3. And they're like, no, we picked which 3 go up on the wall. And it was like, oh, okay. But like, obviously that caused a meltdown. But I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, well, I've got the virtual one and I'm doing my own zine and stuff. It's like, let's see which ones they pick just out of like curiosity, which I guess is like kind of, I don't know.
Did you not get to talk to it and say, look, I want these for it? Because I remember printing mine and I was like, yeah, I want these for it.
No, they just said we get to it.
Were you happy?
I spoke to Lex and I was like, No, you're not putting just any random. I said I want these for it, and that was it.
So this is the difference between Alex, who's very sensible and wants control, and me, who's a skateboarder who also wants to be out of control all the time and wild and just see what happens. But so
is that the print that I bought from you a while back? Is that what that was from?
No, so that was a different exhibition that was going to happen a year before, and yes, it was going to happen a year before when we were in second year, and then it was literally a week before it was about to happen. COVID hit and it was locked down, like the first one. So with that all went to pot, and then it was only after our final year when I did this basically at the same time. I had the two going on, which felt cool. But the Garibaldi who do their like monthly exhibition hit me up because an artist dropped out last minute and they need to fill a slot. So they were like, "What do you have printed out?" And I was like, "Well, I've got these." So we finally got to put them up. And I think they fit better in the Gary personally than they would have at this other one. And then afterwards I got them back and they've been in a pub for a month. So they've been like knocked around and things like that, which is why I ended up like drawing on them and then being like, okay, we'll do it like super cheap and just, you know.
I love it. I've got it here. It's.
Oh, do you
I promise you, mate, he generally has that print there. It's not conveniently
always
there for this podcast.
I was going to move it and put it behind, but I haven't done anything with it apart from put a bit of extra tape on the back.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
We'll get the photo and we'll flash it up on the screen.
Yeah, but I love that, the drawing on it.
Yeah, I think, I ruined the surprise. I think that one was actually drawn by Felix.
Okay.
So I think we
should have just owned it, man.
No, but what are you doing? I want to say that one because I couldn't, because he said, because he was there when I was doing it. Like must have been 10 in total, and I think Felix ended up doing 2, and he was like, "Yeah, put them out." And then I think that was one of Felix's one that he did, or he did part of, and I did part of. I can't exactly remember who did, but the photo is mine. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's really cool. But all of them, the whole series was a really cool idea. Like the way they all, you'd found those little moments in the photo to add a bit of illustration into it.
I thought that was good of the Gary to do that as well. If you're listening to this, by the way, and you keep saying you're wondering who Gary is, it's not a person.
It's a person. Yeah.
It's our local pub. It's called the Garibaldi. It's definitely one of our better pubs in the town for what they do for the community, and it's just a wicked place to hang. Don't get me wrong. There's a few nice pubs in there, but the Gary, what it does for our generation, should we say?
Yeah. And also following what seems to be becoming like a little bit of a theme, like it was a pub that kind of, the Gary as we know it today came out of like skateboarding, right? Because it had a skate shop in there for a long while. Like one of the guys who originally owned it was a skater and like artist as well. So it started off like you go in and it'd just be people after skating at Radlands basically for a fair few months after it first opened, but as I like remember it.
It seems like all our local talent kind of go there as well. Do you know what I mean? Like whether whatever art form you're into, there's some wicked photographers there, some wicked like painters and graffiti artists that I know from there.
Oh yeah,
like Low Tie, like obviously that's his local, right?
See, that's the thing though. It's like that thing where it's like you were saying like, oh, I bought gilets 6 years ago and now everyone's wearing them.
Yeah.
Garibaldi started skater and now it's kind of blossomed into like this art sort of space / pub / hangout / just sick location to be, you know what I mean? Like
good food there as well. If I wasn't doing this podcast tonight, I would have gone to the Lamplighter and had their what do they do on a Tuesday? Tapas. Oh, they do like a vegan tapas night on a Tuesday, and it's so good. It's cheap as well. But yeah. That like if we like, you know, me and my missus aren't posh, so like we're happy with a bit of pub grub, but it would always be like Lamplighter or Gary. Do you know what I mean? Just because you know you're going to see someone that you can say hello to, have some good food, and just leave when you want. Do you know what I mean? It's a good place.
They've closed the basement though, haven't they? Right.
Oh, is it closed for real now?
Yeah, I don't think they've got bands downstairs or anything now.
Wait, where?
With the Gary.
There was, I thought that, but I went in on Felix's birthday, so I should know what day that was. Tuesday, I believe, and there was a thing going on downstairs, a music thing. So I think it stopped over. I think they started using it as a storeroom or something. But it might be back now. I have a feeling it might be brought back.
That's great. That's awesome. Such a wicked place. That little basement.
Yeah,
so cool.
I love seeing a band down there or DJ playing, whatever it might be, like, because it's so kind of grotty in a good way. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they'll be offended by me saying that, but
you mean it used to be worse? Like no stage, it was just like you just play in the corner of the room.
You've DJ'd down there a couple of times, haven't you?
I've played down there a lot. Yeah, I've played on my own and done some band stuff down there. Yeah, it's great.
Well, there you go. There's enough about the Garibaldi. But if you're in Northampton, go have a drink there. It's a nice place.
I was going to ask about what you're doing, like, because I think the first time I found out about what you were doing and photographing around town was seeing your stuff with Tragic, which are, as far as I'm concerned, they're like the best local band that we've got at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the first statement. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It's cool you saw that one because they're probably the band I work with the most out of anyone, or probably definitely like the longest. They were like the start of me. They were the start of me getting away from photographing skate stuff and starting music stuff. That's where it started because I did a shoot for this little like skate brand for like £10 or something. I think I got a shoot, but it cost me 50 quid in film, so like that didn't work out. And then it was like a week later, Cameron messaged me and was like, "Oh, we saw the photos you did for them. We really liked them. Do you want to do one for? I'm starting a band with a guy from an old band and this other guy. Could you do a shoot for us?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then that was still like, I'm pretty sure they gave me like 20 quid for that, which was like, you know,
to get any money out of a band, that's pretty good going.
Yeah, like, so to be fair, that's what we actually wanted to talk about on the topics, because like there's a lot of people that reach out to us that that we took the time to look at their work and they're clearly into like band photography, or like live music photography, which I appreciate. There's a massive art form to it, but we've also had questions about, how do you get into it? How do you get to talk to the bands? Like, would you say your way has just been start local and kind of keep doing what you can to get your name out there? Or is it just always helping out a friend's band and then you've met people through that?
Okay. So this is going to be quite a story because, so the Tragic thing was kind of just like one of those ones where he just messaged me and they were like, "Oh, we're starting this band." And in the back, I knew nothing about Northampton music. I knew this one step, nothing about music, nothing about anything, to be honest. Just a kid. And I was just like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do the photos," being like, at least I'll get some cool photos because this band probably won't exist in a week's
time. At least I'll get 20 quid.
Yeah, because they're literally, you know what I mean? And it's like, it covers one roll of film with the 3 I'm using today. And it was just like this kind of like, and then I met Cameron, they're like, "Yeah, we thought like we kind of formed it with the name like last week or whatever." And it's like, okay, so they haven't played yet. And then I did that. And I was like, they were like fun to hang out with and stuff. And Cameron's Cameron, like one of the most, like, it was kind of already one of those ones where I'm like, this kid's different, right? And then he was like, a couple of weeks later, like, "Oh, we're doing a gig at the Lab. Can you shoot that?" And I went to that and I'm like, "Oh, this was like really cool." Like looking back on it, I'm like, nothing compared to what they're doing now and stuff like that. And like my photos were god awful, but like that sort of thing. And then it just kind of was like this, probably a while actually, because I was at uni, so it was just kind of just like after that being like, "Oh, that was cool" and stuff. And then in second year, when we'd kind of decided we wanted to do these 5/4 portraits, it was like, okay, let's do that, but let's also try and build the connections with music. So we were literally, I'm going to say the Garibaldi again. We went to, literally, it was every Friday we went to the Garibaldi, and it was just like whoever was on, we'd literally just make a note of the name. If we had a chance to talk to them while that, because we normally went straight after we finished uni, so they were still sound checking stuff. Half the time we didn't even listen to the full sets. It was just like we'd listen to sound check and be like, "That sounds cool." And then when they were running around, they're obviously in a man panic because then they've got to go up, they're nervous and stuff. Just be like, hey, if you want some photos at the studio, we'll do some free ones, and they'd be like, yeah, cool. Or we'd like message them on Instagram afterwards. We didn't get a chance, and then I mean, the series on the wall over there. We should have.
Yeah. I can take them down.
Send us a couple of photos.
I mean, the one of Sammy. That's yeah, that's my favorite. And it was literally like, actually, I think I tell a lie because the one with Sammy, it was just like a DM because we found out about him. But it started off like most of it was like.
Is Sammy the guy that does NNR? Yeah.
So he does NNR, and then he's like he does a show Saturday morning on Revolution Radio. Oh yeah, I think he does it, but yeah,
super local. So his name is Sammy Byrne, isn't it?
Yeah.
And NNR is not normal.
Not normal records.
Yeah, Revolution
I actually took a photo.
Our local. What is it? Independent station? I'm just saying for anybody who's not from Northampton, he might listen to this. But
we're all from Northampton here, so that's what heavily topic.
And Sammy Byrne is what? What does he? Is he a producer? What would you call him?
He's a producer and a DJ as well. Is what I guess he'd be happy with. But he produces some sick music that you can find about on Spotify and things like that. And then just all around awesome guy as well. But
because then he bring his mates with him.
He bought Flat James. So we got 3 for the price of 1 basically. But it was just from that, and that's how we basically met, because it was like I was the same. It was like I want to do gig photos, but obviously it's like you want to, like all photographers want to get paid for their work, right? Yeah. But I was like, okay, I want to do gig photos, but bands also want gig photos.
Yeah,
the bands don't really, I noticed, tend to realize they needed like pictures of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd give them a couple portraits, and also it meant we got to practice with the 5.4 camera as well. So it was literally like these shoots would take like an hour or 2, and we'd take 4 shots. And that's like, and it also improved like our ability to like talk, because we'd do that thing where you have a camera and you hide behind it and you just like, okay, they look awkward and they're not saying anything, but I'll take more photos, it's fine. So it just felt like we hung out with them for an hour, and then we went in the darkroom, sorted that out, and they were like, here's 4 cool portraits you can use for whatever, you know what I mean, profile pictures and whatnot. And then after that, it'll be like, oh, we know someone else, or someone else will see them and be like, they look cool, can we get some photos done, or we've got a gig. And then it just kind of, then they're asking you, and they also like know you as a person. As if you just, that whole thing of just like, just turn up to a gig, it's like good practice to take the photos and see if you can actually do it. But obviously you're not going to get to talk to the band unless you get lucky, basically, because they're going to be like, they're working, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's a really good bit of advice though for anyone who's listening who wants to get into like gig photography, whatever it might be, of how to actually do it, because you've got to put yourself out there, right? You've got to go to the shows, support the artists, take some photos, and if they're good enough, great, send them at a later date. And then, like you said, you slowly work up so you've got a bit of a name for yourself within that venue, even, or with that band, who then can start recommending you, and before you know it, you've got a little portfolio going, which you can use then, can't you?
Same with anything, right? Then, isn't it? It's like just go and start doing it, and if you want to take pictures of bands, go and take pictures of bands. Bands are pretty they like having their photo taken in general. I think when you go and watch a band and you get a camera out, you always find one of the members, at least, if not all of them, will start like edging a little bit closer towards you, or like putting in some.
Let me just pour a Stella over my head and rip my t-shirt off.
Yeah. But so is that photo? I know you took it. I'm sure you took it. The one of Tragic, where it's Cameron and they've got their heads on his shoulder.
Oh
yes. Do you want to go?
Was that a 5.4 photo?
Yeah, so that was a 5.4 shot. So what for when we had abandoned, because we could only afford to do like, because it's like £3 a shot every time you pull the shutter. Yeah. And in a studio setting, it takes us with light meters and stuff like that, and certain people, it takes us like 10 minutes of like letting them cook in front of lights. So is that the one? Yeah, so that's so we did basically three shots that were like the Sammy Byrne one of like each individual member, and then we were like, well, let's get a shot of the whole band, because you know, you're a band, it makes sense. But that's like, so Cameron and Lewis, who are like still part of the band, and then Will, who left, which was like kind of this weird, because he left about a year afterwards, but I always look back at this photo as like, if you look at it, he's like slightly edging away, and he was really not keen on getting close at the time. So it almost seems like when you look back at it, you're like, it was almost like, and he's actually like the other two are in focus and he's kind of out of focus, which is like just the nature of 5'4". You know, it's like a real like camera predicting the future a little bit there. If you read into it. So.
I was amazed when I first saw them. I think I was supporting them, or we were both supporting some other band or something. But no, they are a fucking incredible band, and I didn't realize at the time. I think he was 15 when they formed, or some.
Yeah. Will the bassist was like 15, and then I think Cameron and Lewis were 17 when it first started. So it was kind of like, but the thing is, Cameron and Lewis have been doing like that. This is like Tragic's like. I don't know, they've been in other bands before and stuff, so they've been doing it since they were like kids, basically, you know. And like I think their parents are like musical as well, so it's like this whole, you know, really, but also like insane work ethic as well, of just keep going and keep getting better and things like that, which is always fun.
So is that like something you're doing a lot more of still, and what you're working towards for the future? Is it more band stuff? More studio work?
I mean, for me, it's kind of like this nice thing where like, obviously over COVID, everything sort of died. So it was like, I shifted focus completely. I couldn't really do anything with people. And then when it was like COVID was over, everyone's like, the first thing people wanted to do was go to a gig, go to events and stuff like that. So my focus was like straight out of the pandemic, like let's get to gigs and stuff. Because before the pandemic, I literally shot like 2 gigs, the Hometown Projects one and one at the Crawford Arms. And just through the pandemic, I think people just remembered the photos a little bit. So by the time I got to that Garibaldi exhibition, which is where those photos were taken, the lady was like, okay, so we had one wall left to fill, and she was like, do you have any from this gig? Do you have any from this gig? And I was like, no, I've literally shot two gigs and that Tragic one that I'm not showing photos from because they're awful. And I've kind of just bullshitted my way into this world. And then luckily that's the wall that became like the small prints that you could like nick ones and stuff. Because when we put them up, she's like, you know, people are going to take them, right? Because it's suburban. I was like, let's just lean into it. Perfect. Even better. You know what I mean? But yeah, now we have the studio and stuff like with the podcast, and we've kind of been coming back to portraits, not 5/4 because that's a bit, you know, as you can see, like a bit. Well, yeah, but it's also just extremely difficult. Although I'd love to go back to that at some point. I think, but we've learned from it, so it makes like other formats our work improve as well. So it's kind of like back in the studio doing portraits, really figuring out how we, not necessarily the camera side and the technical side, but how we like to work in how I like to take portraits. Because I was still outside of the studio, still doing shoots with the artists, like the one with Tragic, where they're like in the bathroom and stuff like that, Cameron's house, and just kind of like, and I realized like, I don't like taking photos where it's like, okay, here's a cool, but you stand here and look like this, and we'll do this. It's just like kind of like creating an environment like where they can come in and just kind of do whatever weird idea they come up with, and my job is just treat it as though they're giving me a performance to capture, like the same as an event, which is like, and part of that's from doing like the podcast as well. Like the podcast portraits have been getting equally crazier because we've had 2 hours before for them to get in that headspace of just saying anything and not caring. So then they go in the studio and act crazy as well, which is awesome. So it's like, yeah, that's where the focus at, that like that balance of like studio work and events work. But
if you don't know, Joe's got his own podcast. There'll be a link down below. Around Town with 2 N's on the end. Is that one?
Round Town.
Yeah, good name.
Northampton.
Reminds me of Common and Downtown the shop. Yeah. But so I wanted to ask a question then, because I know people are going to ask: is it strictly film, or do you mess with digital as well?
Okay. I'm glad you asked, because it means
what's the opinion?
Okay, my opinion is at this point, like, and I know all the film people are going to hate me for it, and me from 2 years ago is going to hate me for it, but a camera's a camera. I like, no, like my style is still from, it was developed from the film, like the one that Luke bought is a film shot, and that was from these little like £2 point and shoot cameras my brother got off with his friends, and I was just, I'll use them. Someone's asked me to do a gig, I'll risk it and see if these cameras work there. And it just so happened that it gave me this style that people were all of a sudden like, this is so cool. And I was like, these are so what, like, you know. And then I've just basically, and then I kind of got to that point where it was like, with these small point and shoot cameras, like they go wrong a lot, and obviously film costs money and things like that. And it's like, luckily I did have a moment where like people were like, it's fine, we'll cover the film costs and we'll pay you. And it was like happy days, but it got to the point where like, I couldn't rely on these cameras enough, because it would be like the randomness that I like, if I still use them to shoot like I say my actual friends, that's real bad, but like when I just want to shoot, and it's like,
yeah,
you know what, like the last 3 posts from my Instagram are like actual film again, and it's stuff that's just my friend, but I also can't be quick enough anymore without scanning and things like that. So it's just like, and they're also just not reliable at all. And it's like, I can't be like, okay, you get 2 rolls of film for this price, cool. And then it's like, 1 roll of film, just the camera decided to shake it around in there, so they're all really like too blurry. And I personally love a blurry photograph, but some people aren't too happy when you're like, and here's the finished result, you know. But it's been, I can translate this style to digital, which is like the one that I sent you that I said about where it's camera and precedent scene, that's a digital shot, and it's still the same style. I try and take this expensive DSLR I can, make it work like a shitty point and shoot I bought a charity shop. But it's also like the trickiest thing for me was like the psychology of it for me, being in these event spaces and being like when you have a little camera people think is a toy, they give you, being a drunk person at a club and they like be having fun with their friends. When you walk up with a professional camera with a big flash on top, they suddenly start acting like, you know, they're trying to pretend they're sober for their mum when they get home, you know. So it's like trying to turn this professional tool into a toy so that people will give me what I want, you know what I mean, and kind of get the better photos that seem like it was taken by a friend and not a professional photographer with a big scary camera, you know what I mean. So I think just knowing what camera does what has helped me a lot. But when I've been using 5.4 and different cameras, that means that with a digital camera I can kind of make it do what I want when I need it to do, and it's reliable enough, if you know what I mean, but still kind of like love film, love that end as well, you know what I mean.
I going back to what you said, I think it's a camera at the end of the day, right? It should be about the results, not necessarily the camera. But at the same time, the photographer in you wants to, you know, you can't help but be attracted to a certain type of thing. Yeah? And, you know, I go through stages of like, right, I'm only shooting film now until I die, I'm only shooting film. And then like a month later, I'll be like, right, back to digital for a little bit. And it just depends on the situation I'm in. But you know, when I got back into photography, because I've always been into I've been in photography for a long time, but like a lot of people, life got in the way, and then, you know, picked up the camera again 5-6 years ago, started getting more and more into it, into like certain cameras, certain film stocks, or, you know, digital cameras, whatever it might be. And I remember talking to Joel Peck in the Gary, and he just bought the Ricoh GR2, and then I was like, yeah, I'll get it. If it's good enough for Joel, it's definitely good enough for me. Do you know what I mean? So I bought one, and I fell in love with, you know, how to use a smaller camera, because it felt so much like a little point and shoot. But then subliminally, I'm like, why don't I just start using point and shoots again? Do you know what I mean? Like, because in your head, you're like, oh, charity shop, I bought that camera for £4. There's got to be something that better out there that I can afford now. That I'm not saying hundreds and hundreds of pounds, but more than £4 that's going to make me think it's better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That whole thing, it's like, still I'm like, I have a perfectly good Nikon D750, which is what I'm using at the moment, but I'm still looking at those, like, you know, like the Fujifilm ones that are more like a digital point and shoot, or like even some that are like smaller than that and stuff, and I'm like, I want to do. It's just like, I think you said, you know, Tyrone Williams.
Oh, yeah.
I ran into him, and he uses like this little tiny digital camera, and I'm like, yeah, but it's perfect for like what I want. But also then sometimes it's like, you know, there was times, like thinking back, where it's like people have hired me for a shoot, and then I turn up with these little point and shoot cameras, and they start looking at me like, okay, what's going on here? And then the whole shoot, then it's like the reverse.
It's the glass. Trust me, it's the glass. It's the lens. Do you know what I mean? No.
But it's like, well, some of my point and shoots are literally like you slide back the thing, and it's a little tiny plastic. You know what I mean? And then you get the opposite because they're not giving you a fun side. They're giving you, oh my god, I've spent money on this kid to turn up with the camera my like gran used to use for, you know, pictures of a cat, and it's just like, oh, and then you know what I mean. So it's just like finding that balance and stuff like that. But
choose the DSLR as a prop, and then get the point and shoot out and be like, oh, let's just take a few fun ones, and then like that's the actual one. Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's the strategy. I did do like for a few shoots like a mix of all of them, like the one with Tragic in the Bathroom. There's like film ones, medium format ones, and digital ones. That used to be like I'd go out with. It was getting to the point where, like, you know, some photographers are like, oh, I have one body and then I have 4 lenses with me. For me, it was like there was 1 lens on each camera, but there was different cameras in the bag, and I'd be like swapping between them, being like, this one gets this one gets, and the people just going, oh my god. And then I'd come home and be like, okay, this is gonna cost me 3 times what I'm getting paid in film. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, but then the photos are good, and then it's just this cycle of just like, you're like, no, but you're making it. You are.
If they've seen your work and they want your results, then they just need to trust you. You know what I mean? But easier said than done, isn't it? Do you both ever learn to kind of put the camera down, or are you both people that carry a camera with you all the time?
Yeah, I just kind of, my whole thing was just like, I don't know. It's kind of, it's like skateboarding. It becomes obsessive, doesn't it? It's like I'm just. So it's why I'm scared of drugs, is because it's like it's just you do it instantly, you know what I mean? It's just like, I know I can't trust myself. It's like it becomes this thing where it's just like, okay, I come here all day and we say do some portraits, or like we do a podcast, and it's like, even though like the podcast originally I wasn't taking photos afterwards, but now it's like we're sat here, the studio is 2 feet over there. It's like, yeah, let's get some photos. Why wouldn't we? And then, you know, and then I'll go, you know, someone will, like, friend will come around. It's like, oh, let's take pictures of you while you're hanging out, and then, you know, go shoot an event that night, and then I finish that at, you know, when the pub or the club closes or whatever, and then I walk home. It's like, oh look, you can do street photography, and you don't have to worry about someone being like, did you just take my picture because everyone's asleep? And then that's where like the wasteland images at night came from. It's just like walking home late at night and stuff, and then it's like. And then
everyone goes through it, don't they? Everyone goes through that stage, and I'm still in that stage. I'm like, shoot everything, but now I'm way more choosy with my photos. Where when I kind of got back into photography, I was actually thinking about this last night. So when I got back into photography, I was like, yep, shoot everything, and everything I'm going to take is going to be amazing because I've got this little charity shop camera, or I've just bought a fancy camera, whatever it might be. So therefore, I am a good photographer, when it's not. But then I was looking through some of my old photos that I took pretty much like a year ago. Like I was looking at like a time hop or something, but on Google Photos, so they do it by like the month. So I was looking back from like this month last year, and this month the year before, and the month before that. And there's photos that I know that I got developed or I've taken, and I was like, no, these are crap, because, you know, you're expecting 36 photos back, right? And you quickly kind of skim through them, or, you know, however many photos you've taken, and you skim through them and you pick out your favorite ones. And you're like, yeah, that says me in the camera. But then I look back at them and I find that I'm looking at photos that I instantly dismissed, and I'm now like, oh, that photo means way more to me now than it did a year ago. Do you know what I mean? Because all of a sudden it's got a story behind it. Do you know what I mean? Whatever that story might be, there was a reason that I took that photo. And if I can remember why I took that photo, even if it's just of a guy's shoes out on Abbey Street, but I can remember why I took it. And that, I think that speaks volumes. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone looks back at work differently. And I think that's the advantage of having like prints of your work, or a zine or a book or whatever, because it don't matter if you only pick that book up once a year or whatever. They're going to mean more to you every time you look at it, even if it's from a different artist. Do you know what I mean? Because mine works differently, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like that whole thing of like that thing is what I found, like, from the film. If I feel like if I'd started on digital, I probably might not have this, but it's like from the film days of like keeping the negatives, and like back in the day, like especially for like the early days when I started, when you went to skiers, they'd be like, do you want the prints as well? And you'd be like, well, yeah, otherwise how am I going to see the photos? I didn't know what scanning was or anything, so it would be like, I have tons of photos where it'd be like they'd give half of them are blank, half of them are terrible, you know. But it's just like you go back after 6 months and be like, oh, I didn't know I had a picture of this person. Oh, this isn't there anymore. And then you start, you know, it's like fed into my digital work where obviously, like you can go to an event and like last Friday there was an event at House Stafford I shot, and I've only just finished editing today because I shot 1,000 photos. But even though not all of them are like the portfolio worthy ones, it's like I can't bring myself to delete them unless they're literally blank. You know what I mean? Which like it's digital, so that doesn't really happen as much because unless my like flash runs out of battery, you know what I mean? So it's like you end up keeping all, which my hard drive on the desk over there is like screaming right now that I've just put all that on there, you know what I mean? But it's still just like, I know for a fact, like I'm going to go back and be like, there's that person, there's this person, there's this person. And it's like the same with like the wasteland scene, like that was all pretty much all shot on the London Road. And then like I still shoot when that's the main part of my walk home to Wootton from here. It's like mainly just that route on the London Road. And then it's like, there's stuff that you become kind of numb to it because you see it all the time. It's like when you go to skate park every day and you're like, oh, there's no more tricks to do. And then something changes. Someone brings traffic on.
Someone new comes along and hits something that you've never seen before. And you're like, why didn't I think of that?
Literally.
You know what I mean?
And then like obviously like out in the open world things change, you know. So like recently next to the Giggling Sausage, the billboards have just been taken down. So I'm already thinking that when I go home tonight, take a photo of that, because it's like it's the same thing. It's still the London Road as it always has been, but it's constantly like evolving in these small little ways. And then it just becomes like, suddenly you have just a ridiculous amount of photos. And it's kind of this thing of like why I'm hyper focused on Northampton, I think, rather than being like chasing his own, because you do have that connection to it. You do have stuff. And there's like way more than I can, I'm taking loads of photographs, but I'm missing basically all of it, if you know what I mean. I'm capturing, like, because it's physically impossible, but it's just get to the point where it's like you say, it's like a photo. But I have stuff from gigs where it's like I've reloaded the batteries and then just checking the flash works again, and then it ends up being like all the artists is like switchboards and wires, and then like my feet are in the shot, and I'm like, I'm keeping it because you know what I mean. It kind of is like it, and then it's just like. Or like I'm walking home from the pub and I'm like, wait, I'm just taking a picture. And then like I'd Felix is like, what are you taking a photo of now? It's just like, look, I don't know yet. I'll know in 6 months' time, you know what I mean? It's like with Will being out of focus and out of like, why do it then? Why not stop and go, come on, Will, get a bit closer, like, you know, you're meant to do as a photographer. Be like, no, can everyone get in, please? It's like, maybe it's good. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's like, I don't know, people like this was one thing that in uni it was always like in photography you always have to think about like being in control of the situation and stuff, and it's like I don't want it. I want to. It's fine as it is. That's just yeah.
I think it's a good way of putting like a collection together as well, because when you look at photos over a period of time, look, it reminds me of something you did with haven't done, but I'm sure you will one day. Of all the photos of the cars parked out of signs that say "Don't park here."
Yeah,
where,
I'm still collecting them.
Yeah, but like, let's say, like, if I took a photo of a sign, you know, of a car outside of a sign that said "Don't park here," I'd either get it developed and post it to Instagram, and it just becomes another photo, or I'll think, no, this is crap. But then, if I look back over the years and realise that I've taken 20 of same but different photos, before you know it, you've got this body of work, this collection of work that actually goes really well together. And they might not be the most perfect photos, but as a collection of work, it's quite interesting to look at. And if you want to put your name to something like that, then do it. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird one how it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm still collecting them, but I'm like, it was because I shot one roll of film and there was about half a dozen photos of cars outside, no parking signs. And then I just looked back and I was like, oh, I've actually got some others. And now I just see them everywhere. Like every time I go out, I find one. And then you took a picture of me in front of a no park, like accidentally. So I was like, cool.
There's the cover.
Yeah, to individually, they're not interesting. So I've never posted any of them onto Instagram, but I think as a collection, they might
Yeah, but if you post it now and then you see like another photo, you're like, oh, do I hold on to it or not?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
it's also like planned photography, like especially with like street photography. Yeah, because as you said, you walk around, you're walking home, and you see something like, right, I'll take that, and you either look at that photo and go, that's great, or you go, I'm going to come back and take a really nice photo at a certain time of day or a certain time of year, whatever it might be. Right? So you can't like. I feel like all photographers have this fear inside them to ever share their work because it's like, oh, could it be better? But at the same time, yeah, like why are you worrying about what anyone thinks? There's a car that parks around the corner from my house, and every night I take my dog out for just a little wee before we go to bed. Right? Not me, the dog. And but there's like a bungalow around the corner from me, and I don't know if it's the guy that lives there or the woman that lives there, whatever it is. But he parks his truck outside. His truck is, I'm not joking, the same. Like if you're standing across the road, his truck is the same size as his bungalow, like width-wise. But I'm just wait. Like every night I go out there and I'm waiting for him to park perfectly so it lines up. And in my head, I've got this shot in mind where I'm like, right, I want to take a photo of this truck outside this bungalow because if you get like the angle right, it can just look like you're almost hiding the bungalow. But he's like, the closest he's got is about 10 centimeters away from being perfect lined up. Now, I could go and knock on his door, right, and say, oh, I'm a photographer. Can you move your car 10 centimeters back? But I feel like it would be such a better photo when I finally nail it and he's parked perfectly. Even if the photo isn't that great, to me, it will be like, well, I've been waiting 4 years for this shot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, I get what you mean with not wanting to go, because it's like any normal person would go ask, right? But to a photographer, it's just like, no, it has to be something that actually happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't count. It has to have happened. It's like it's like you say with like you say, it's planned because you've already thought of the shot and you're waiting for it to happen. But it's like, it's not really planned. There is like photographers who do like planned, like shoots that are planned out exactly and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and I love them. Like, and I'm all for doing that. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to do more of that. But then I just feel like sometimes you get a shot and you're like, it will mean more to me if it just lines up perfectly. Yeah. There's actually there's a pub that's closed down around the corner from my dad's house, and like outside the pub you have like the signs that sit on a massive pole, and it just where it like normally flaps with the pub name.
No, right.
But it's empty. And I said to you about it ages ago, Luke. I said it's currently empty, so it's just like this natural frame that's hanging. But I think I said to you it's on like a flight path, or did you say you should have a look if it's on a flight path or something?
I don't know. Where is it?
It's actually near the college. But there's a closed pub, and I keep looking. Every time I drive to my dad's, I see this empty like pub frame. I'm like, it'd be so good to take a photo of a plane going through, so it's like naturally framed. And like, I'm sure you said, Luke, or someone said that you should check if it's on like a flight path, but I don't know, I'm not intelligent enough for that. So there's me just waiting to see if a plane will go. But again, and I'm like, if I wait long enough, I feel like I'll just see it, or it'll be taken down and I've missed it forever. But then that's kind of okay, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Because unless it was a perfect situation, it just wasn't meant to be. I don't know. It's weird how your brain can work, isn't it?
It's that thing of like when I just do photography and it's like the same place, it's like some nights it doesn't change at all, but it's like sometimes you walk up and it's just like something sticks out to you that you've been blind, you've walked past listening to music every day, and then one night you just like, it has its reason, and like you say, it's like one day that there's going to be a plane in that frame that's going to be like just begging to be, it's going to give you it basically. It's like that like, because I did street photography before I did music, and then now I'm doing portraiture. It's like that's the sentiment that I'm trying to get at with portraiture, being like, I want them to give it, and then I'll they'll give me that inch of something they'll do, and then just take as much as I can with the camera, like just go for it. You know what I mean? And also you said with the whole being afraid to share your work thing, like because you don't know when it's gonna. That is the situation I'm in right now, because I want to finally, like, people, I've released zines and everyone's like, right, but you do all this music photography, and then the zine is like something completely else. So I'm like, I want to do the music one, but then every time I'm like, okay, I can definitely put together the selection, and then someone's like, so there's a gig happening in this really interesting location with this new band that's fucking awesome, and then I'm like, well, here's another 4 that need to go in the book, otherwise it wouldn't be a complete document of and then music stuff. Like, oh, there's a new band. It's like, and they're awesome, great. It's like, well, someone else I should have known about 2 years ago, you know what I mean? It's just like, it just keeps.
When does it end? Do you know what I mean? When does it end? And it should never end, but at the same time, you're like, I've got to put something out sometime. Or do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's a weird one.
Exactly, but it's this challenging thing. Like,
worse is when you take good photos and you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to share these or do something with them. Do you know what I mean? Book, zine, prints, and then you really look at them and you're like, oh, are they as good as I think? Do you know what I mean? The amount of times I've got a photo back, I'm like, this is the best photo I've ever taken. And a week later, I'm like, that's the worst photo I've ever taken. Like, it's just bad, isn't it?
This is the thing, you like put the zine together, you're so excited, and it's like, is it good enough that someone's gonna want to like get one or like pick one up or something? It's like, do I want to hit print now and it's going to cost me this much, and then no one's going to even like consider it, you know what I mean? But it's that like.
But you were saying this the other day, weren't you, with your Wasteland book that you did? You're like, oh, the images I took back then, it's fucking shit, dude. It's like, I really wish I never put them out, but people still took them, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. But I think in the hindsight, it's like, I don't know. It becomes, like you say, they become like little mini diaries, don't they? Once you put it out, it is like that thing. It's like in photography, it's kind of this thing where I kind of want, like, what's that zine now? 2-3 years old. So it is kind of like with photography, it kind of goes through. Like you say, it's like when you first take it, you're like, yes, this is it, and then 6 months later, you're like, oh my god, this is wrong, should have done that better, what was I thinking, should have drank one less pint before I got behind the camera, like all these things. It's like, this is how you, and then you but that's good because it means you're getting better, and then it's like you say, like in 2 years time you go for what it is, and for what it is, for like it still serves a purpose as a photograph, you know what I mean? Okay, now
you're your own biggest critic, aren't you, at the end of the day? Luke, I remember you saying something to me about like your music, and this is when we like early day, like I don't think Front had even like not that we've launched yet, but we haven't even come up with the idea. Me and Luke were out on like just met up one day to go and take some photos, and you said something about your music, like whether you should start putting it out on SoundCloud or something. But then at the same time, it'd be kind of cool if no one ever found it. Do you know what I mean? Or if you happen to find your music or your photography, whoever it might be, like let's say I put out a zine, and let's say I only sold 5 copies, and then in 30 years' time, someone goes, I've got one of those 5 copies. That's a pretty cool feeling for me to say, there's only 5, I only sold 5 of them because no one gave a shit about them. Do you know what I mean? So like over the test of time, you'd probably be more grateful that there's a limited amount, right? Do you know what I mean?
I think I think it was like an interview I'd read with David Byrne or somebody like that who said the most radical thing you can do as a musician is at the moment to just record songs and not let anybody else hear them, because that's the complete opposite of what everyone else is trying to do. Like everyone's just throwing shit out there. And I did see something the other day that people were complaining about, obviously it's shit how much musicians get paid by Spotify, like less than a penny a stream, or like a fraction of a penny a stream. But I saw something where somebody was saying there's so many people out there now putting music out that it's like supply and demand. There's so much of it, it almost is worthless, because you can listen to it for free anywhere on like SoundCloud or YouTube or something. So just because Spotify have a revenue kind of thing, like why does it have to be more than that? That's kind of what listening to a song is worth. I don't agree, but like it's an interesting like way of looking at it. It's but yeah, I suppose it's like similar to when you take a photo and you don't put it on Instagram or you don't do anything with it, you feel like it's unfinished. You're like, well, I haven't done anything with it, but you don't have to do anything with it, but it feels like you should, I guess.
But I was just going to ask, because people who listen are definitely going to ask, but what's your go-to film stock?
Ooh, HP5.
HP5, sure. Yeah.
HP5 with a flash and the worst camera you can buy.
Yeah.
The cheapest, just grimiest, and then just, debit yourself, print out, perfect.
Nice.
I don't know what you're looking at, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. One day someone is going to say something other than HP5. It's going to be a glorious day.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely my. What did I text you like last night? I said I can't. Like, I keep trying different things, especially like we're doing front. We're like trying to make some videos and stuff, and it's like, you know, we want to try out different film stocks, not just for us, like, you know, obviously for ourselves as well. But then I can't help but just love HP5. I feel like it's just so versatile and so good. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's awesome. It's like, weirdly they advertise it as like not high contrast, but you can get it to that point easily.
Yeah.
It's like it's there, you know what I mean? And it's just like it's grainy enough, and it's like gnarly enough to kind of like that perfect
balance of it.
Yeah.
Have you ever actually tried? It's called Washi. This film, and there's.
Is that the Lomo one?
No, it's this bloke. He's based in France, and he makes each roll by hand. This film, the emulsion is hand painted, I believe. On the one I tried is really thin.
Is this the 50 ISO one?
No, this one was 500, like a bit of a weird one, but it's really, really thin, so it's really hard to get it onto the reel to develop it afterwards. And I was like, I'm never using this again. But for about the 5th time of trying to get it on, and then I developed it, and it's really grubby, but in a really good way, and it's really, really high contrast. And I was like, if this was easier to develop, I'd use it all the time. It's amazing, not too expensive, but can't use it in like an automatic point and shoot though. It would just rip it apart.
I love that thing with film though, where it's like it's this thing where it's like, okay, so it's having like a bit of a, like, it had its revival, and some people still think it's like on a revival. It is in terms of popularity, but like the actual film being manufactured, like since I've started, there's like countless film stocks that have just like vanished off the face of it.
Yeah.
And then there's like things like that where it's like some guy hand painting it, and it's really like DIY kind of, you know what I mean? It's like back to like, I just hate building again, are we? But like, you know, like in America where they had in the 70s all the parks shut down because of insurance, and then kids were building backyard ramps and stuff. It's just kind of like, okay, it's like, you know, it's never over. There's like someone who's going to go out and just do it themselves and just kind of be like, okay, let's just keep. So what if they're not going to give it?
The passion, isn't it? Yeah. It's funny you say that. Last night I actually watched the Danny Way documentary that I think it's like Ride the Lightning or whatever it's called.
The Wall of China one.
Yeah, but obviously it documents like his kind of life, and it goes through the parks closing down and whatnot. But into photography just reminded me of watching that last night. But yeah, I know what you mean, like with the passion of just people just want to make it continue. Do you know what I mean? Which is cool. Yeah. Have you still got any copies of Wasteland available, or prints or anything like that?
So yeah, there is, because I printed it a long time ago and severely overestimated how much is, and it just becomes that thing where it's like, well, it's only £2 more to print another 100. What could go wrong? So yeah, there's a fair few Wasteland copies about, with some stickers inside as well. There's also dig around. But yeah, there's copies of Wasteland. There's I think maybe 1 or 2 copies of Angels and Ghosts still, and then we're going to put out a new 4 prints from all of us on photomafia.com. Well, tomorrow, so they'll be out by the time this comes out.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Yeah, and then also, just while I'm sort of merch, there are some shirts coming soon, but they may be sold out by the time, because what we're doing, it's like basically an extremely limited run, so it can't possibly go wrong no matter how much we balls this up. Yeah, so they may already be gone. We might be on the second one, but yeah. So
nice. Well, yeah, if you do want to contact Joe, or there'll be a link down below with available works and how you can get hold of it. So yeah, please check that out. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having us.